Polylaminin, a miraculous divine intervention or just an extraordinary scientific discovery? Today we are going to talk about this surprising protein that is forever changing the history of those who could no longer walk. Brazilian biologist Tatiana Sampaio made this discovery that is allowing paraplegic patients to walk again after a severe injury. But the detail that truly intrigues the world is that the exact shape of this vital molecule is a cross. Could this protein be the creator's signature on the human body? Welcome, Decoders. Before I tell you the true story about polylaminin and the long time it took to be made, look how this isn't the first time the impossible invades the labs. We will show you several discoveries of humanity that look much more like a direct divine intervention than something simply discovered by a normal person. Pure chance does not exist in the real scientific world. Science calls serendipity the act of finding something valuable by pure chance while looking for something else. But for us, chance is just the pseudonym God uses when he doesn't want to sign his work. The greatest example of this happened in 1928 with Dr. Alexander Fleming in London. He was brilliant but famous for his extreme disorganization. Before leaving on vacation, he made an amateur mistake. He simply forgot some dirty glass plates on his desk. These glass plates contained cultures of deadly bacteria left open on the bench. For science, that was a completely ruined experiment. But while he was away, a rare fungus spore flew through an open window and landed in the exact spot. And the miracle demanded more, that summer in London had an abnormal temperature variation. The mold needed the exact cold to grow, followed by the exact heat for the bacteria to react. It was a perfect, heavenly orchestration. Upon returning from vacation, Fleming noticed the green mold had contaminated the plate, and around that fungus, the deadly bacteria simply disappeared. There was a halo of perfect transparency. It was the birth of penicillin, the first antibiotic that would save millions of lives. How many mathematical chances existed for this flawless sequence of events? The ultimate cure for humanity was delivered through a human error and a forgotten open laboratory window. And divine providence did not stop there. Fleming's penicillin was hard to purify on a large scale. During the Second World War, the world desperately needed more medicine. It was then that a laboratory assistant found, in a completely unexpected way, a rotten melon in a common local market. That melon carried a variant of the fungus capable of producing 200 times more penicillin. The salvation of the Allied troops came directly from the garbage. Another incredible accident that redefined human history and proved that the invisible rules the visible happened in 1895. German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen was studying cathode rays in a closed vacuum tube covered by thick black paper made to block any light. Suddenly he noticed something physically impossible. A chemical screen, left far away from the equipment, began to glow intensely by itself in the dark of the room. There was light hidden in the unseen. A completely invisible radiation was passing right through the black paper and the air. Röntgen started placing objects in front of this energy until he asked his wife, Bertha, to put her hand between the tube and the screen. The first radiograph in history revealed the bones of her hand and her wedding ring. What had always been hidden under the skin was revealed in an instant. A luminous leak error created all modern diagnostic medicine and won a Nobel Prize. Shortly after, in 1896, the cloudy sky of Paris became the stage for another divine intervention. Scientist Henri Becquerel suspected that uranium salts could emit rays if they were exposed to sunlight. But the weather closed in, and the sun didn't appear for days. Frustrated, he stored his experiment along with photographic plates inside a dark drawer. He was waiting for the sun, but the universe had other plans to reveal the immense power of the creation. Contradicting all logic, Becquerel decided to develop those photographic plates even without sunlight, expecting to find weak or faded images. To his absolute perplexity, the images were incredibly intense and sharp. He concluded that uranium emitted radiation spontaneously without needing any external energy. The bad weather forced a storage error that ended up opening the gigantic doors of atomic physics for all of humanity. God works in mysterious ways. The history of the first vaccine against smallpox also hides a great touch of providence. The glory was given to Edward Jenner in 1796, as if he had a brilliant, isolated epiphany. But the reality is that the cure was already walking silently among the most humble people. The protection offered by cowpox was already a known fact in European rural folklore long before official science recognized it. The divine knowledge was delivered first to the simple peasants. Decades before the famous doctor systematized the vaccine, a simple farmer named Benjamin Jesty had the courage to use cow pus to protect his own family, achieving absolute success against the human plague of smallpox. Jenner's great merit was testing and publishing what rural workers already knew by pure observation. God used the invisible routine of the stables to hand humanity the ultimate key that would eradicate the absolute worst of all terrible diseases. The profound influence of the unexpected extends to all areas, transforming supposed failures into technological miracles. In 1938, chemist Roy Plunkett was trying to create a new refrigerant gas. He stored a gas cylinder in dry ice, but when he opened the valve, nothing came out. The gas seemed to have completely disappeared, but the heavy weight of the cylinder indicated the matter was still in there. Scientific logic had failed, forcing him to saw the metal. When he opened the cylinder, Plunkett didn't find the gas he was looking for, but a white, waxy and incredibly slippery powder. The gas had polymerized spontaneously and mysteriously, creating an unwanted residue. This accidental failure gave birth to Teflon, a material with extreme heat resistance that would become essential for space exploration and our daily lives. Providence transformed a simple refrigeration error into a revolution that changed the world. In 1945, an engineer named Percy Spencer was working with military radars, surrounded by war technology. During a routine test with microwave emitters, he noticed something bizarre. A chocolate bar that was in his pocket had completely melted, even without any visible heat source. He realized that the invisible radiation was agitating the water molecules of the food, generating intense heat from the inside out by pure accident. The invisible changed the physical. Moved by his sharp intuition, Spencer tested the phenomenon with corn kernels, which popped immediately. Unintentionally, the highly advanced technology created to track enemy aircraft in the Second World War was transformed into the microwave oven. An equipment that today is in almost all kitchens in the world was born from a ruined snack in a lab coat pocket. Once again, the invisible altered the course of civil technology through a small, everyday detail. Even the lack of hygiene in a laboratory has been used to change history. In 1878, chemist Konstantin Fahlberg spent the day working with toxic coal tar derivatives. Exhausted, he went to dinner and made a serious mistake. He completely forgot to wash his hands. When biting his bread, he tasted an excessively sweet flavor. He could have been poisoned by his carelessness, but instead, his failure resulted in the discovery of saccharin, the very first sweetener. The greatest legend of science also hides the hand of destiny. Isaac Newton didn't discover gravity just because an apple fell, something that happens thousands of times a day. The true miracle was in the context. In 1665, the Great Plague of London forced Newton into a deep isolation. It was the pandemic that took him out of the urban chaos and put him in a state of silent contemplation in the countryside. The forced quarantine prepared his mind to decode the universe. Newton's true epiphany was not realizing that things fall, but understanding that the exact same invisible force that pulled the apple to the ground was exactly the same one that kept the gigantic moon trapped in its orbit. He used that fortuitous moment of observation to unify terrestrial and celestial physics under a single mathematical law. A trivial event, guided by the silence of a quarantine, became the absolute pillar of all modern science and understanding. Penicillin, X-rays, vaccines and gravity. All these monumental leaps of civilization share the exact same signature of improbable events and prepared minds. As Pasteur once said, chance only favors the prepared mind, and it is exactly this deep harmony between the unforeseen and extreme dedication that brings us back to the present day, to the UFRJ laboratory in Brazil. It is time for us to reveal the complete behind the scenes of the astonishing protein of God. We now return to the UFRJ laboratories in Brazil. The discovery of polylaminin didn't fall from the sky in a single night, but required 25 years of absolute dedication from biologist Tatiana Sampaio. She spent decades deeply studying the extracellular matrix, the microscopic environment that surrounds and protects our cells. It was this almost unshakable persistence that paved the way for the protein of God to be finally bioengineered and used as a cure. To truly understand the magnitude of this medical miracle, we need to separate polylaminin from the famous stem cell therapies. Traditional medicine has always sought to replace dead spinal cord cells with new ones. It is an attempt to recreate from scratch what was destroyed by the trauma. But the Brazilian team realized that the secret was not in manufacturing new parts, but in repairing the broken road so that the human body could simply heal its own deep wounds. This is exactly where the original laminin comes in. It is an essential glycoprotein that acts with full force when we are still embryos. In the mother's womb, she is the great architect that organizes tissues and guides the millimetric growth of our nerves. However, when we reach adulthood, this wonderful protein practically disappears from our central nervous system. Without it, a ruptured spinal cord entirely loses its natural capacity to regenerate and reconnect. Dr. Tatiana's flash of absolute genius was to seek this protein at the very origin of human life, the placenta. Her team managed to extract laminin and adapt it in the lab through a complex bioengineering process. The result was polylaminin, a polymerized and much more robust version of this molecule. They created a giant structure, perfectly capable of supporting the heavy weight of nerve reconstruction. The laboratory perfectly imitated the creator's masterpiece. When a person suffers a severe spinal cord injury, the body creates a glial scar that completely blocks the passage of any electrical signal. By being injected exactly at the site of the trauma, polylaminin acts as a true biological scaffold. It creates a formidable chemical bridge over the abyss of the lesion. This physical structure provides the exact support so that the surviving nerve fibers can cross the dark scar and find their way back to normal communication. The true goal of polylaminin is not to create new neurons artificially, but to rescue the communication of those cells that were completely isolated. The protein bridge allows the neural networks located above and below the trauma to talk again. It is exactly like reconnecting the wires of a massive supercomputer that had been turned off. The body's electricity flows again, the synapse happens, and the miracle of movement resurfaces where medicine only saw paralysis. And the practical results of this biomedical intervention are generating a massive shock of hope on a global scale. The most emblematic case is that of Bruno Drummond de Freitas. In 2018, he suffered a complete cervical injury, an irreversible sentence of tetraplegia. But after receiving the experimental application of this powerful polymer, the impossible happened right before the doctors. Bruno recovered his ability to walk. The cross-shaped protein lifted him up. The astonishing speed of regeneration in some cases deeply defies any previous clinical prognosis. Another patient, Luis Fernando Moser, reported the impressive return of sensitivity and control of his muscular functions in less than 48 hours after the intervention with polylaminin. What used to take many months of intense physical therapy with no guarantee of success now responds in a matter of days. The biological matrix wakes up the body with celestial grace. But what truly made this discovery explode outside the laboratories was the incredible trimeric structure of laminin. It is composed of chains that intertwine, forming one long arm and short arms, drawing the exact shape of a Christian cross. Cold science classifies this as pareidolia, or just a functional cell-binding need. But for the eyes of faith, it is absolutely impossible to ignore that the basis of our cure and cellular union carries the greatest symbol of salvation. Preachers all over the world use this microscopic image as the perfect theological metaphor. The cross is the glue that keeps the human body and humanity united. This powerful symbolism helped humanize Brazilian science, bringing it closer to the general public. But it also overshadowed the absurd rigor of 25 years of solitary work. Dr. Tatiana proved that true scientific faith requires patience to read the signature of God hidden deeply within our biology. Despite the results that seem like living miracles, the path of polylaminin still faces complex trials. Dr. Tatiana Sampaio and the scientific community ask for absolute caution. In January 2026, Anvisa officially authorized the start of Phase 1 human trials. The main objective is not just to make the patient walk, but to attest the safety of the molecule and meticulously observe the biological reaction of our delicate organism to this great intervention. To transform this revolutionary discovery from UFRJ into a registered medicine, the Brazilian laboratory Cristália took action. They have already invested 100 million reais in this massive medical research. It is a monumental effort to maintain the productive development of this cutting-edge technology in their own country. They fight with immense strength so that this astonishing cure is born and stays on national soil, proving their great scientific capacity. However, this gigantic medical project also brought to light a huge ethical and scientific debate. Painful reports emerged of 3 patients who tragically lost their lives after receiving the substance. They did not participate in the official medical study, but managed to get their treatment through desperate judicial injunctions. The hope of walking again made the families seek justice, revealing the extreme urgency of those who live trapped in a hospital bed. It is absolutely vital to clarify that these 3 tragic patients were already in a very severe and terminal clinical state even before receiving the biological application. Up to this exact moment in history, there has been no valid scientific proof regarding any fatal causal link between polylaminin and the deaths. The fragility of human life in extreme cases reminds us that science, even when it deeply touches the miraculous, hits our ultimate mortal limits. This painful situation also managed to uncover an immensely hard and dark theme for the entire national scientific history: the severe lack of basic financial resources. Despite being an extraordinary discovery that can change medicine, Brazil lost the international patent for this technology. The motive is sad and scary. There was no money to maintain the payment of annual registration fees abroad. A bureaucratic error that unfortunately cost the domain of innovation. All this harsh and tragic darkness is what wise experts sadly call the massive flight of patents. Brilliant knowledge, generated with so much sweat in public universities, frequently ends up being capitalized by gigantic foreign companies. The seed of pure genius is planted locally, but immense bureaucratic barriers prevent the harvest from returning as a direct benefit to the society. The glorious engineering of human hope is forcefully stopped by simple paperwork. To definitively reverse this great tragic trend, the enormous private investment has become something totally vital. The association between the public university and the private initiative tries to shield Dr. Tatiana Sampaio's invention. They fight to guarantee that when polylaminin is finally approved and commercialized, it becomes a true national pride, accessible first to those who urgently need this microscopic bridge to heal their broken spinal cords today. The fabulous saga of this cross-shaped protein proves that scientific progress is never a predictable straight line. As we saw in the history of penicillin and X-rays, science is made of exhaustive preparation that suddenly finds the spark of the improbable. The shape of laminin powerfully evokes the greatest mysticism of human history, but its tremendous direct action on the spinal cord is pure and true biological regeneration. Science and faith are working together. While famous stem cells still seek their ideal space in medicine, the modulation of the microenvironment with polylaminin presents itself as the great light at the end of the tunnel for traumas considered irreversible. The biology of the extracellular matrix hides mysteries that we are only now beginning to decipher. The human body is an immense universe, and modern science is just starting to read the lines of the ultimate instruction manual left by our Creator. While famous stem cells still seek their ideal space in medicine, the modulation of the microenvironment with polylaminin presents itself as the great light at the end of the tunnel for traumas considered irreversible. The biology of the extracellular matrix hides mysteries that we are only now beginning to decipher. The human body is an immense universe, and modern science is just starting to read the lines of the ultimate instruction manual left by our Creator. When we observe majestic polylaminin healing the spinal cord at a microscopic level, we immediately notice the brutal fragility that our amazing human design hides. The body seems like an immensely complex electrical network. If a wire breaks, the movement stops. But divine intervention in laboratories also saved the main motor of life, the heart. Another great inexplicable accident completely changed history and the exact rhythm of our heartbeats forever. In the year 1956, engineer Wilson Greatbatch sought to build a technical equipment capable of intensely recording every heartbeat. His intention was not to cure the human heart, but simply to observe it deeply. But while he was soldering the dark bowels of his equipment in the workshop, he put his hand in a box of parts and made a complete mistake. What should have been a simple and silly technical error quickly transformed into one of the greatest medical miracles. That engineer grabbed a totally wrong piece, an incorrect electrical component. Upon soldering it and applying energy, that valuable machine did not begin to read the heartbeats as expected. Instead, the equipment began to emit a rhythmic, constant, and surprisingly perfect electrical pulse. The sound that echoed in that dark laboratory was exactly the same sound and rhythm of a healthy human heart. He was accidentally manufacturing the great compass of human life. It was thanks to this wonderful accidental miracle that the great inventor realized that this small device could substitute the natural heartbeat. Thus was born the first implantable pacemaker in medical history. A simple and human electrical resistance error inside a dark toolbox ended up saving millions of lives to this day. The powerful spark that keeps so many families alive today was delivered to humanity through an incredible and pure stroke of divine luck. It is highly poetic and celestial that the pacemaker and polylaminin share this powerful medical purpose. One uses an accidental electrical pulse to keep the heart beating without stopping. The other uses an amazing cross-shaped protein to reconnect the broken wires of the spinal cord. Both deal with that invisible energy network that keeps us alive. They are the ultimate proof that the body is a masterpiece, meticulously designed to be able to regenerate itself today. We have trillions of cells acting in perfect and silent harmony inside us, glued by this exact same wonderful laminin. Faced with so much immense biological complexity, the great philosophical question screams loudly: is it truly possible that the universe and human life are just a cold sequence of random collisions in the dark? Or is there a great architect leaving miracles disguised as science to remind us that we were designed with a very profound divine purpose? Our science and faith were never great enemies. On the contrary, faith is that great invisible fuel that keeps great scientists like Dr. Tatiana focused on a single molecule for 25 long years. The deep belief that there is a great order hidden in the chaos is what drives all investigation. When religion and medical science strongly unite their colossal forces, we are able to see paralyzed people miraculously rise from their wheelchairs and walk again. When all medical science reaches its dreaded limit and the diagnosis decrees the hard end, it is great faith that completely takes command of the situation. The patients who received the experimental polylaminin didn't just need a substance injected into their backs. They needed an unshakable hope, a giant spiritual strength to believe in the impossible. The physical cure was born in the laboratory, but the true healing of the soul began when they decided to believe. The immense universe always whispers its greatest and deepest secrets to those who pay close attention to the small details of life. The great microscopic cross hidden deep inside our body is a formidably powerful reminder. It tells us directly that, no matter how physically shattered we may be, we are never truly broken beyond celestial repair. The true and pure cross of life still sustains your existence here on earth. You are a masterpiece of divine engineering. Chance is just the discreet signature of God's most silent miracles. From the fungus that flew through a window in London to the patience of a Brazilian team to decode our immense cellular matrix, science continues to reveal the spectacular show of eternal creation. The great protein of God demonstrates today that the impossible is only a matter of immense faith. The very same cross that divided human history silently sustains your entire body at this exact second. Polylaminin, the valuable pacemaker, penicillin, and powerful X-rays prove to us that the universe is not a cosmic casino playing dice with humanity. There is a terrifying intelligence operating behind all matter. The same grandiose, cross-shaped microscopic structure that sustains your cells right now is the greatest symbol of sacrifice. Our body carries the immense signature of the Creator nailed deeply into its fundamental and living biological source code forever. For cold, skeptical science, the great cross of laminin is just a structural necessity called pareidolia. But for those who have the great courage to decode faith, it is impossible to ignore the immense weight of this great coincidence. We were designed by the great architect to glue our broken pieces back together. When hard life breaks you inside, remember that you have God's great protein holding your biology together. We were absolutely created to resist today. True and great science will never push man away from God. On the contrary, it reveals the astonishing magnitude of his great hidden works. Dr. Tatiana Sampaio, Alexander Fleming, and Isaac Newton did not create new laws. They simply stumbled upon what was already hidden since the foundation of the immense world. Modern biology confirms what immense faith always knew clearly. We are perfectly designed to heal. The concept of random chance is a great human illusion. If you are facing a medical battle today that seems entirely impossible, always remember the paraplegic patients who walked again. They received the great biological matrix, but they needed an immense spiritual strength to believe that the impossible would truly happen. The physical cure began on the cold tables of a laboratory, but the true healing of the soul began when they decided to take the step. God provides us the bridge, but you must have great courage to cross. We live today in an astonishing era where the microscope can clearly see the fingerprints of Christ. What seems to you today like a simple error, a strong accident, or a total detour on your path may be exactly the secret laboratory where the Creator prepares your greatest miracle. The great universe knows how to reward those who never give up searching. Divine engineering uses the unpredictable to immensely shape our great and strong destiny towards absolute victory. Chance will never govern your great history. If the immense Creator orchestrated the weather in London to create penicillin, why do you doubt today that He controls your immense journey? We are the most complex and formidable machine ever created. And when this great machine fails, Providence always sends comfort. The powerful cross is not only on the old Calvary. Today it sustains your strong spinal cord, your muscles, and your deep breathing. You are a living miracle. Science and religion have always walked hand in hand towards the unknown. Great religion seeks to give a strong meaning to our life, while true science tries to discover how it works. When both forces manage to unite, the result is the great overcoming of our mortal limits. Let this profound scientific history serve you today as a great inspiration to never surrender to a terrible and cold clinical diagnosis. The matrix of human life still sustains your existence here. And you, brilliant decoder of faith, do you think all this was just a large group of cold mathematical coincidences? Or do you believe that modern science has finally begun to read the instruction manual of the great God? Leave your honest opinion down here in the comments. If this great journey through the powerful world of the unforeseen managed to open your mind today, subscribe quickly to our channel. Join us and never forget to leave your strong and valuable like. Share this immense video right now with that person who urgently needs a great shock of pure living hope today. Someone who needs to understand that there are never great accidents in all the gigantic plans of the great celestial architect. Your great attitude in sharing our history can be the exact brilliant answer that someone longed to hear today in their life. Together, we will always continue revealing and exposing immense secrets that are very deep and hidden. We on your channel, Decoding the Faith, will continue brave on the front line of investigation, analyzing great and sacred hidden mysteries with the powerful magnifying glass of pure truth. The astonishing unforeseen was never a deadly chaos. It is God's great method to manage to surprise us immensely. Never stop questioning the hidden and remember firmly, the cross sustains your entire life today. May the immense God always protect you. Until our next great video.